You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm Miss, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ryan. And you're listening to Season 6 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. The podcast in which Ryan is the expert on Warhammer 40k, and I am the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. And there's a whole lot of things going, and I feel like we need to catch up on something from last week's episode. So,
yeah,
get explain?
I feel like a little catch up is a good idea. So,
Yeah.
we're covering that much in these seasons now. In each episode, there's so much detail in them that I feel like summaries are a thing we need to start doing.
In last episode.
Yeah, last time on the Iterators of the Imperium.
That would actually be a funny idea, you know? Like
Yeah.
have a little soundboard you can clip, like...
That would be quite good. Although I feel like it'd end up like Dragon Ball, where half of the episode is the summary of last time.
Oh yeah, I hated that when I was a kid, but then I
Oh,
loved the
God,
series anyways.
Yeah.
I loved it and I hated it.
Oh, right, let's do this. So, last time, obviously, we were talking about Ahriman, and he went on a little journey to try and find his lost brothers, now that he knew that they were still alive. And eventually, after kind of giving up, because he can't actually find any of them, he goes to Menkaura, the Oracle, the big weird demon one that can see all possible futures. Because that guy doesn't move very much, as it turns out. He's quite stationary for a guy that can see all possible futures. I would think that would be a guy that move around a lot. Turns out, no. You just build a moon and live in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he built the moon, actually, thinking about it. He might have just, like, found it. I don't know. Maybe it formed around him. But, anyway. So
Maybe it was destiny in his future. Oh, sorry. Maybe it was his destiny. It was his future, you know?
Through all possible futures, the only thing that is, like, set in stone in all of them is that he will live inside a big moon.
Yes. I feel like that's correct. You can pick and choose whatever future you want, I guess.
Yeah. So, after meeting with Menkaura, Ahriman obviously settles on he has to go hunt down Amon. Like, there's no way around this. He has to go face him. So, to that end, he goes to this astropathic relay station that he and his dudes killed, like, centuries before, because he could summon a demon there and get some information out of it. Turned out it was a trick. They all tried to escape. Ahriman ends up pretty well injured. Astraeus gets out pretty okay. Phidias, one of the Space Marine brothers, just fucking does like a heroic last stand and dies. And Caden obviously got possessed, attacked them in their escape ship, and Ahriman did manage to banish the demon out of him. So they did both survive the fight, but Caden was, you know, pretty well mulched by the ship's guns before he even got inside, so getting the demon out basically ends him, but he's technically still alive. And the whole thing ended with Ahriman, you know, losing consciousness after banishing the demon out of Caden. Caden? Yes, Caden. So there's two of them have like the same name, Caden and Kadar, which is almost lazy writing if you ask me. But
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah.
A little bit.
Like, the amount of crazy names there are in Warhammer, I feel like we need to just accept that some of them are going to be a little bit lazy. They put a lot of creativity and effort into the vast majority of them. Once in a while, there's just going to be a guy called John, you know? But saying that, I don't think there's a guy called John in Warhammer, now that I think about it.
Is there not?
Not that I'm aware of. There's probably one, but it'll be like a random guardsman or like a fucking random member of the Administratum or something. Just does paperwork all day. And no one will ever know he exists.
Who is John Warhammer? Wait, what?
What?
No, sorry, I had to Google it. They say, of course, Lionel L. Johnson is coming up, but John, you know, it's fine. We move on. I'll keep an update if I find a John.
Yeah, if you find a John, let me know. So, we're getting into the new stuff now, right? So, Ahriman obviously passes out on their little escape ship after the battle with the possessed Caden. He wakes up being, like, operated on a surgical table by Carmenta and a bunch of servitors. And it's been 6 days since he lost consciousness. So they've just been back on the ship for 6 days. Astraeus just took them back. Uh, so Ahriman obviously was injured, so Carmenta's patching him up. Oh, by the way, interesting thing, right? He didn't pass out because of like injuries or anything like that, or like overusing his magic. He passed out because it's like a thing Space Marines can do. They always have the ability to just like conk themselves out unconscious to keep them alive. Their body goes into like a hibernation state to keep them alive.
Why, might I ask?
In case they're like severely injured and stuff like that, you know, like it buys time. It honestly, it's typically used in conjunction with other abilities they have, because one of the abilities they have is this thing that like excretes a mucus membrane over their body, and it's like it seals them away from the void of space. So if one of them is in a ship that gets attacked and they get like sent out into space, their body can just like coat them in like a little cocoon of goo, and it keeps them alive.
Oh.
But like, you don't want to be awake and using all your energy while you're just floating through the void, because you'll probably die before you're found. So if you go into this like hibernation state, you'll probably be able to last for a lot longer. You know, giving you a chance to be found. So it's supposed to be for situations like that. There is one like Dark Angel who, back at like the Heresy era, before they got into like proper Heresy stuff, was set to like guard this demonic seal that like sealed away one of Nurgle's greater demons. So he's just like, I think they dig him up in one of the books, or they like accidentally find him, but they think he's like a statue, and then he just like comes to life, but he's just been standing there in his armor unconscious for like 10,000 years. Which is very funny, because the actual Dark Angels get involved, and obviously the old Dark Angels don't know what the hell is going on with the new Dark Angels, so he spends like the whole book avoiding his friends. It's very funny. Good book. Very good book.
Yeah.
It's, right. So you know how like the Navy is like spaceships and stuff like that in Warhammer, right? And there's a lot of them come up in books, and a lot of it is very good stuff. There's a lot of cool Navy men and stuff like that, cool naval battles. There is also a thing called the Adeptus Aeronautica, which is like an air force, but they're only for on planets. They don't do space battles, because that's a Navy thing, right?
Okay.
And when they do come up, I typically find them incredibly boring, because it's like a normal air force. You know what I mean? Like, you are so limited in the grand scheme of what is going on here. But that particular book, I can't remember what it's called. I read it a few months back, but that one particular book has like a storyline about one of like the Aeronautica pilots fighting this like demonic wyvern. It's called the Helldrake. It's a big robot demon dragon. But it's actually a very cool storyline. It's like the first time I've liked one of the Aeronautica people. So, there's that. Anyway, moving on. Back to what's going on. Back to Ahriman. We're sidetracked a bit there. So, even after all the injuries and stuff, Caden also survived the journey back. And Ahriman, after waking up, basically is just like, seal him off. Like, he's in a little like healing vat thing, you know, like a cloning tube. He's in like one of these things to keep him alive, even though he's like missing limbs and stuff. Ahriman's just like, seal him off, because like he's definitely still able to be possessed. Since it's happened once, he'll do it again. But also he's like blind, comatose, and dying. So, and he has like one limb left. So you're like, he's not much of a threat. So let's just like lock him in a tube in a lab for a while, and we'll figure out what to do with him later. You know. That's Ahriman's plan. He's like, you know what, right? This guy doesn't seem like much of a threat. Let's just like leave him there till I've got time to deal with him. So as it stands, the survivors that are still on this ship are currently Ahriman, Carmenta, Astrios, Meroth, the little creepy broken Chaos Psyker, the demon that Meroth grafted into Astrios' other brother, Kadar, and Aegon, which is the Navigator, who was, well, he died, actually.
What?
Yeah, so you know how last time when the space station was being attacked by demons, and he was freaking out, and like the Titan child was going to like be destroyed because he was freaking out. So Carmenta like sealed him in his little navigator place and like cut him off from the ship. Because she's like, I cannot fucking deal with demon attacks and this asshole having a panic attack at the same time. Yeah, when they checked on him, he was just dead.
Well done. Unlucky.
Yeah. So, there is a bit in the middle, right? Which is, once they got back onto the ship, right? Because 6 days have passed since Ahriman passed out. They are not at that space station anymore because they were being attacked. They had to flee, right? So Astrios has brought the little escape pod back in to the Titan child with the unconscious Ahriman and Caden in it. And then Carmentas will say to Astrios, look, we need to move. We're going to be destroyed if we stay here because of the demon attacks. So they went, right, cool, go. Just anywhere, go. So they let Aegon make a warp jump, because that's the whole point of Navigators, that they can do that. But the thing is, he was terrified, having a mental breakdown, and dying all at the same time when he made this jump. So it was just a blind jump. Like, he didn't have a direction to go. He just went on instinct. And you need to remember that Aegon and Carmenta were originally, or they are still technically loyalists. They're just seen as rogues, right? So, like, the loyalists don't like them, but they still like the loyalists. So these people are all from, like, normal human society. So when Aegon's, like, been dying and panicking and running in fear, he's taken the ship to what he would consider, like, the light. Like, you know, safety. Which, unfortunately, is actually, you know, outside of the Eye of Terror, because that's just a nightmare hellscape. So, when Ahriman, like, wakes up and starts to figure out what's going on, he finds out they're, like, right outside the Cadian Gate. Which, do I have a map of this? Yeah. So, they're, like, you know the bit over here that, like, cuts in? They're, like, right in there. Right at the bit where it, like, forms back into real space. Which is a terrible place to be, because it's, like, the most heavily guarded place ever.
Unlucky.
So they're in a pretty dangerous spot. They have no navigator, and most of the people they had are dead now.
Right. Nice.
Grim times. It's not looking good. So, Ahriman obviously needs a plan, right? So he takes a little bit of time and he thinks about what he's going to do, right? And because obviously he's set on the goal of going after Amon now. So he's like, right, how do we move forward with that? First things first, we need to be able to have a navigator. We need to get the fuck out of here, right? We need to be able to go where we need to go. So, while he's trying to figure it out, Astrios comes to him and demands that they wake up Caden, right? And Ahriman's like, well, why? He's going to be possessed again, but also, like, he's got, like, one limb, so fine, fuck it. Like, he's not going to... Couldn't strangle someone if he wanted to. He's got one hat. Like, we'll be fine. Not like he can chase us down. Like, take one step back out of his reach and you're good. It's fine. They go and they wake him up. Basically, they find out he's not possessed. He's kind of corrupted and becoming a bit demony, but he's still, like, mentally, he's still all there, right? He feels nothing. He's kind of empty inside, so he'll probably be a bit more murdery, or a bit less caring about being murdery. But he's still himself. Yeah. He still is aware of what's going on around him and stuff. He's not insane yet. So, Astrios manages to get Ahriman to agree to rebuild his brother with, like, augmetics so that he can join them in the fight again. Ahriman agrees purely because he kind of needs more guys in the fight, and this guy's now expendable. You know what I mean? So, they rebuild Caden to some degree and let him rejoin the fight. Now, during this, Ahriman figures out his plan. He's gonna go get a new navigator. The idea is they're gonna go steal one from a ship nearer to the Cadian Gate. Which is a very brave idea, since it is, like, the most heavily guarded part of the entire galaxy. And Cadians are fucking beasts when it comes to blowing up ships and stuff, so, you know. But it's the only bet they've got, I guess. But to get close enough to do this, they will need someone to guide the ship. and they don't have a navigator to do that. So, luckily, a powerful enough psyker can take on the role of a navigator briefly. Like, they're not built for it, but, like, if you're strong enough, you can, like, withstand it for a while. You can endure it. So Ahriman's like, well, I'll guide us long enough to get to where we need to get to. Then we'll ransack someone else's ship and steal their navigator. Pretty fair bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ahriman takes up the role as a navigator, and, you know, they set the plan in motion. Ahriman guides their ship closer to the Cadian gate for the sake of being able to reach another ship. They jump out of the warp, and then, in preparation, because the ship can just fly normally now that they're out of the warp, while they're doing that, you know, heading in closer to figure out what they're going to go for, Ahriman spends days building this massive ritual circle, right, and doing all his preparations for some magic spell. And this is all part of the plan for getting a new navigator. It's a whole thing. And towards the end of the time, once they're like in position, Carmenta basically just shuts down every system on the ship so that it looks like a dead ship. It's one, so it won't appear on like scans, so no one will get like a warning that they're there, but also just so that people don't fuck with them in the meantime. Because like if a smaller ship that doesn't have a navigator turns up, they're fucked. So they kind of just lie in wait, waiting for the right moment. And either through good luck or bad luck, I'm not really sure which, a ship does come by, but it's an inquisitorial battleship. And, like, Inquisitors are, like, the worst people to meet in this situation.
Yeah.
like, killing people like Ahriman is their entire thing. You know what I mean? It's like their whole life goal. But, like, as this ship gets closer to try and investigate the Titan Child, because they think it's just a dead Hulk, suddenly the thing just, like, roars to life, starts flying towards them. And... well, it's a weird thing, right? It's because Carmenta's trying to keep it quiet, keep it still, and the Titan Child starts fighting back, because it's got its own consciousness now, kind of, because it's all, you know, demony. And also, she's been joining her mind to it, which is also a really bad idea. So as much as she's forgetting who she is, it's starting to think it's a person. It's the whole thing. So, like, she's trying to make it stay quiet till the Inquisitorial ship gets closer, and it starts, like, firing its engines and stuff. The whole thing. It's like when your dog's pulling on a leash and you're like, no, come on. Basically doing that with her spaceship. Not a great situation to be in.
Nah.
But it's because the ship fears the Inquisitorial ship. It's genuinely afraid of the Inquisitors. So it's trying to get away from them as they get closer. It basically just becomes her fighting with the ship until the ship gets close enough for Ahriman to kick off his plan. Because the ship doesn't really matter in this part of it. It's Ahriman's plan's the important bit. So, once the ship does get close enough, Ahriman kicks off his plan, activating this big ritual circle, which teleports himself, Astrios, and Kaden inside the Inquisitorial ship. So this was the whole point, like a teleportation, like, rapid strike. As they arrive, Ahriman, for the first time, sees, like, what's, like, kicking off. They basically just clear the area they're in, because when they appear, there are enemies. But they just kind of clear the area they're in, and then they all have, like, a job to do. Ahriman obviously has to keep the teleportation ritual going so he can get back. So Astrios has to go and steal the Navigator, and Caden's just there as a guard, basically. Because Ahriman's kind of half doing something else. So if a fight breaks out, he's only, like, half paying attention. Astrios ends up charging through the ship, and, you know, ripping people apart until he gets to the Navigator's sanctum area, and Ahriman is left kind of investigating the ship, because their area is clear now, so he can do things like scout the ship with his mind, so he, like, throws his mind through the ship to investigate it. Interestingly, this is a really weird ship. There are clockwork mechanisms all through the ship's walls and stuff. It's like a ship built on clockwork. And it's basically just because the Inquisitors seem to have decided that the way the warp messes with time is really important. And I'll give you a quote from one of the books about this in particular, which is, It was a ship built on paranoia laced with poorly understood defenses. So they seem to have it in their mind that something about the way time works wrong in the warp was, like, massively important. So they had to track it in every possible way. And it never worked. They just couldn't do it. They were terrible at it. It's really not very good Inquisitors is the important thing here. Which is lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they're up against, which is, really not very much. Like, Inquisitors are formidable, but, like, it doesn't mean that they're all good at their job,
No.
Yeah. So, anyway, Ahriman did manage to locate the Navigator and send Astrios to go and get him. Astrios arrives at the Navigator's chamber, and obviously the actual room with the Navigator in it is heavily sealed. It's like big blast doors and stuff. And it's protected. Quite heavily. So Astrios, like, barges his way into, like, the room before the Navigator's, like, sealed up room, and there's a guard, but Astrios basically just rips him apart. Like, and just, like, tears his arm off and beats him to death like a sack of ties.
Get wrecked.
Sorry. Yeah. But seeing that this, like, guard for the Navigator has died, all the Inquisitors are alerted that they're going after the Navigator, so they now know what's going on. One of the Inquisitors is a Psyker, right? So she's picked up on the fact that there are Psykers running around their ship. She decides she's going to go hunt them down and kill them, right? The other Inquisitors on the ship are all just like, nah, just leave them, be fine. She's like, no, I feel like we should maybe defend ourselves, might be a good idea. So she sets about going after Ahriman and whatnot. And all of the Inquisitors have, like, a bodyguard with them, which is, like, a big heavily augmented thing. So all of their bodyguards go with her. So she has 3 of these things called Seraphs following her. I'll explain. A Seraph is an arcoflagellant that is also a pariah. An arcoflagellant is a really weird thing that the Mechanicus make, right?
Okay, yeah.
So typically an arcoflagellant is kind of like a servitor. You get a person that is like a criminal or whatever, you modify them pretty heavily to make them amazing in a fight, and you also give them a bunch of, like, electrical based weapons. So they can, like, tear through someone with, like, an electric whip. Stuff like that. Right?
Oh, God.
But the thing that makes it a seraph instead of an arcoflagellant is that these ones, the people, were originally blanks. They don't have souls, so they disrupt psychic powers. So she has 3 of these fuckers, these heavily augmented war, like, anti-psychers following her to go kill Ahriman. Which is not great. They're also kind of feral sometimes. I'll be honest with you, anything that the Mechanicus make, there's a big range in what it ends up at. Right? Some of them are basically feral dog people. Some of them are, like, perfectly crafted war robot people. There's a lot in the middle as well. There's gonna be one that's a bird, and I don't know why. As much as they're like, there is one way of doing everything, as it turns out, no, there is not, and they do all of them in the middle. It's weird.
Nice.
So, Astrios basically just picked up the Navigator under his arm and, like, ran back with a guy flailing in the wind. Like a ragdoll. Think of, like, Gmod ragdoll physics. That's what the guy was doing as Astrios carried him back. He gets back to Ahriman. Ahriman tells Astrios to, like, go through the portal, go back to the ship. And as Astrios, like, escapes with the Navigator, this is when the first Seraph kind of leaps at them and attacks Ahriman. Ahriman obviously, like, freezes as this thing jumps towards him because he feels his, like, connection to the warp being destroyed by its, like, presence? I don't know. I got a word that meant, like, distance. But whatever. As it gets closer, he feels his connection to the warp getting weaker and weaker, so he kind of, like, freezes up, like, the fuck do I do? Luckily, Caden just steps in out of nowhere and cuts it in half with a chainsword. Because luckily he's half demon monster now, so he's, like, he's pretty good at killing things and doesn't really care about, feeling uncomfortable. The benefit of having fallen to chaos is, at the start, you just become really good at your job. Then you start, like, licking people's eyes and stuff. That's when it gets a bit weird. So you start collecting limbs for trophies and things, but before that, you're just really efficient. Obviously, the rest of the enemies start turning up. So the second one appears, and he like starts whipping Caden, takes the weapon out of his hand, so Caden doesn't have a sword anymore. Caden falls to the ground. Shrapnel from the chainsword is fucking everywhere because he shattered the fucking thing. But Caden just grips the Seraph with his bare hands and just squeezes the life out of it. Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, he really doesn't feel anything anymore since he was possessed. Like he's like Terminator. You can like gun him down, he'll just keep walking. He's really not giving a fuck. So third Seraph and the Inquisitor finally turn up. There's a whole thing where Ahriman and the Inquisitor kind of recognize each other. So like there's gonna be a storyline about that later, where these two definitely know each other. But the gist of it is Caden murders the third Seraph. Again, bare hands, because he's a fucking psychopath at this point. And both him and Ahriman manage to escape before either of them get killed. The only real important detail in here about the Inquisitor is that, one, they recognize each other, and two, she manages to shoot Ahriman, but, like, the bullet shatters inside, like, into him. So there's shrapnel from the bullet inside him now.
Okay.
Right? Now, this would typically not be an issue. Typically, they would just remove the bullet parts and it'd heal up no problem. The issue is that because she's an Inquisitor, and she's clearly one of the ones that's designed to kill Psychers, is her bullets are, like, laced with, like, holy shit. I don't know what they do. I don't know if they consecrate them or what, but the bullets are anti-Psycher. They're like, there was a whole thing, psych-out grenades and stuff, that apparently they're made from the dust that gathers on the Emperor's golden throne. So they, like, banish the warp in the area. I think in reality, they're actually made from, like, the bones of pariahs. They, like, grind up their bones and make stuff out of them. But either way, having this shrapnel inside him is weakening his powers.
Yeah.
So, not a great position for her to be in. But obviously, once Caden and him get knocked back through the portal, even though he's injured, they just shut the portal. So, they have a Navigator now, and fuck the Inquisitors. So Ahriman lost consciousness after he got shot, because it's a big shock having your mind totally cut off from the warp all of a sudden, or weakened that much. But Caden just like yeeted him back through the portal and then jumped through as well. So Ahriman wakes up. He's got a habit of just like getting unconscious recently. He wakes up on the floor of the Titan Child, while it's being shot at by the Inquisitorial ship, because they've started returning fire now. And he tries to figure out what the hell the Inquisitor was and what's going on, why he recognized her and all this. And he realizes that he's kind of like trapped in his body now, and he can't feel the warp anymore, so he has a little panic attack. Which is fair, I guess.
I guess.
And while he's like sitting on the floor, like having a mental breakdown, Carmena and Astrios are just like running around and panicking, trying to figure out what the fuck to do. And eventually the Navigator agrees to just help them, but it's because like otherwise he's gonna die too. So he's just like, yeah, look, just plug me in. I'll get us the fuck out of here, right? It's like I don't want to die either. Like I know I've just been kidnapped, but like I know you guys are the enemy, but I'm on your ship now. If they gun us down, I die too. Fuck this, I'm out. Let's bail. He very quickly switched sides. I like this guy's survival instincts. Like, okay, so I guess I'm evil now. Let's go. Yeah, just for the record, this Navigator is just suddenly on board. He's just like one of the lads now. He does not fight back at any point in time. He's just like the best dude.
Yeah.
He just really
like you say, in survival, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Survival instincts, man.
Yeah.
So you gotta play the cards you're dealt. While, you know, they're finding a way to survive, Ahriman's just sitting there with his mind retreating further and further into himself. Just like slowly descending into his panic attack more and more. So within Ahriman's mind, he ends up like just his body walking through his mind, and he finds like two doorways. One is like the first door he ever put in his weird mind palace thing. The other is like brand new. He's never like been in it before. He explores a little, and he ends up like realizing one of them is somehow from the like. So when the Inquisitor shot him, like obviously his powers were cut off, right? But his mind kind of like panicked and reached out for like one kind of grasp at anything, and obviously the most powerful psyker nearby is going to be like the thing you can grab onto the easiest. So it like stole a part of like her mind and just like put it behind this new door. So like stole some of her memories, which is really weird. Yeah. I don't know how to explain that any better.
Nah.
So Ahriman opens this door and sees like what those Inquisitors had found while they were in the Iterators, because they were coming back, they were leaving, and what they had found was like ashes of a war and this like final battle and the fall of the planet of the Sorcerers, which is the one Magnus and the dudes now live on, and the final death of 1,000 suns. Which, again, time doesn't work normally in this place. So that's all in the future, right? The 1,000 Suns are still alive to some degree, and that battle hasn't taken place, but they've seen it. So Ahriman's like, wait, no, that's not fucking right, what the fuck? So it kind of just stands to set Ahriman more on this line of, like, I need to hunt down Amon, because that has to be tied to him, right? Like, it has to be. So whatever Amon is doing, I need to get involved to stop that, like, end of times for my brothers coming. Makes sense. It just sets him on that path a bit harder. And Ahriman then, like, abruptly wakes up to Carmenta sitting over him with a scalpel, pulling out shards of the bullet. I think some of them do get left inside. There's, like, a couple really near his heart that she doesn't take out. Or something, so he's not at like 100%, but like he can use his powers again. You know, he's at like 70% power kind of thing.
Yeah.
But obviously mid-surgery, Ahriman, being the impatient prick that he is, just gets up and fucks off. She's just standing there with a scalpel and covered in his blood, like, dude, I'm in the middle of something. What the fuck? And he just kind of like explains what he saw and, you know, how important all of this is, the prophecy behind it all, and that they need to go, you know, fuck up Amon or find out what the fuck he's doing. Because they still don't know why he's doing any of this. They just know where he is now. Luckily, they have their new Navigator, so they have him take them to Amon's location. Because he did get it from the demon, even though the demon turned out to be like a trap. But he did get the information anyway. And when they arrive at their location, what they see is this gigantic fucking, like, fleet of spaceships, and in the center is this one really big ship called the Sycorax, which used to be one of the 1,000 Suns ships. But around it are, like, an armada of various void ships of different sizes, different heraldries, everything. It's just, like, every single Chaos warband that could be here is fucking here. They've, like, all been recruited to join up to whatever the hell is going on. So Ahriman's looking at this like, it doesn't seem good. This guy's, like, preparing for a war or something, and he's recruited a lot of arseholes. So this ain't good.
No. So
only some of the ships are actually 1,000 Suns ships. A lot of them are just, like, you know, again, vague Chaos warbands. So Ahriman's like, yeah, this ain't good. So he, like, uses his powers to, like, block them off from the warp so no one else is gonna, like, spot them with their powers. And they just kind of let the Titan Child kind of, like, drift in. Like, so they're not, like, powering. They don't want to, like, catch anyone's attention. So they kind of just go dark and just let it, like, kind of, like, generally float towards this gathering of chaos fuckers. While they're, like, floating in, Ahriman's trying to figure out what to do again. Because, again, what the fuck do you do in this situation? You need to get to Amon. He's probably in the center of this whole fucking thing, in the Sycorax. Which, unlikely to be a good idea to just go head first for that, you know? So he takes a little moment to go and, you know, think again, as he does all the fucking time. And he goes back to his quarters and he tries to like figure out if he's like making the right choice or what he should do and all this. And he ends up like again back in his mind, which is a really weird thing. I don't know why he does this all the time. There's a whole thing where his mind palace pops up all the fucking time. But he basically talks to his brother, like his actual brother, and settles on the idea that he's responsible for all of this, like for everything's happened. The Rubrique was his fault. Everything that happened to his brothers after that is his fault. So since he's responsible, and he always was, for good or ill, he has to, take command of that. If he caused all of this, he has to be the one to fix it. And if his people are suffering, he should be the one leading them, So he's like, right, that's it. We're going for this. I'm settled on it now. We have to, take this, we have to take control of the situation, or at least take responsibility for it, one way or another. So they get the Titan child a bit closer to the Sycorax, and as it does, the other ships nearby kind of cause Carmenta to start panicking. She's afraid. So as time goes by, obviously Carmenta's became more and more bonded to the Titan child. She's losing her mind a little bit, thinks she is the ship, and she only wants to protect the Titan child. So all of these Chaos ships nearby start putting her on edge, starts getting afraid for the safety of the ship. So in a panic, she signals the Sycorax to try and save herself. It just says, I am the Titan child and I wish to speak to Lord Amon. So she wakes up Ahriman, calls him to the bridge, and as he is once he gets there, 3 gunships have arrived on the Titan child from the Sycorax. And it's 3 armored figures, all sorcerers of the Thousand Suns. And they come into the bridge as Ahriman's standing there, and the whole point of this is she's ratted out Ahriman to Amon, and he sent these 3 enforcers to come and capture him. As Ahriman's standing on this bridge with these 3 armored figures preparing to fucking murder him or capture him or whatever they're gonna do, and he's reeling from the fact that Carmenta's turned on him. At the far end of the ship, Astrios happens to run into Meroth and Caden, who are just wandering around being creepy chaos people, because it's just their whole thing. And they all kind of get into I was going to say an argument, it's not. They all kind of just fling insults at each other, because Meroth's mocking Astrios for basically being as corrupted as they are, but pretending he's not. And while all this is going on, because Astrios and Meroth are both psychers, they feel this darkness fall over them, like an eclipse occurring. They're what the fuck was that? So they're in a panic, they try to radio Ahriman. They're dude, what's the fuck's going on? And they get no response. It's just static, they can't connect to him. And they're that's not fucking right. So all 3 of them just bail towards the bridge. And obviously Ahriman's there readying for this fucking battle against 3 other very powerful sorcerers, as Meroth, Caden, and Astrios are charging the length of the ship to try and come to his rescue. And I think that's a good place to leave off for today.
Alright then, you want me to round it out?
Go for it.
Well guys, that has to be it for this episode of ITO. I still don't know why we're calling it ITO, by the way.
I don't know, we've been saying it wrong this entire time. It's not even close.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode. It's been me, Miss, and Ryan, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care and peace.
Bye.